My cause today is to decode homoerotic and queer art with the foremost educator on this topic, Ignacio Donorde. An art scholar and lecturer, his ongoing project, Breaking the Queer Code in Art, uncovers the creative alibis used by queer artists to express their forbidden desires during repressive times. Well, that brings us to J.C. Leyendecker. He created the ideal American male image. I mean, the original, that inspires me and makes me want to aspire to things to this day. Was the homoeroticism in his art just solely because he was a homosexual, or do you think that it was just the nature of commercial art making in its day, and they created the perfect American man to sell clothing and shirt collars and all kinds of things? And, you know, he was the Calvin Klein of his time, except he was the artist that created it, as far as I can tell, out of whole cloth. I mean, it wasn't there, and then he put it there.
The answer is all of the above. I think Leyendecker was the right artist at the right time. So he appeared in the Roaring 20s, you know. And the Roaring 20s, they were desperate to leave behind all the conservative mores of the Victorian era. So at that time, the advertising companies, the clothing companies, they were desperate to find images that would establish fashion, they would establish trends. And Leyendecker's style was unique and perfectly suited for this. And to your point, he created groundbreaking queer imagery that defined the fashionable American male of the early 20th century. But what is even more extraordinary is that the model for many of his paintings was his life partner, a Canadian guy called Charles Beach.
Wow.
How twisted is that?
How amazing.
Beautifully twisted is
that? How good for him. Can you, tell me more about their relationship then, he and Beach.
Well, so it all started when Charles Beach, who was a drop-dead gorgeous Canadian, showed up at Leyendecker's studio offering his services as a model. Leyendecker was older. They were very different personalities. But really, that was the beginning of a 50-year relationship, a relationship that helped Leyendecker transform into the most important American artist of his era. That's how important it is. And their big breakthrough came when Leyendecker pitched a shirt company the idea of creating a unique symbol for the shirt company. What you described, the ideal American man, the arrow collar man. That was the name of the shirt. And this arrow collar was, I mean, if I had to describe it, he would be handsome, and he would be preppy and athletic, and he would have a very desirable body underneath an exceptional poise. He would have a chiseled face and a very firm chin that showed passion and determination. So these ads not only defined the American male, but it really became the symbol of a new and vigorous America. And this campaign for Arrow Collar Man from Leyendecker, it caught lightning in a bottle. I mean, Arrow Collar shirts cornered 96% of the market because of this campaign. And it turned the Arrow Collar Man into a sex symbol. 1 month alone, in the headquarters of Arrow Collar, they received over 17,000 letters from fans of this image, that person that doesn't exist, many of them with marriage proposals. And I just find ironic that I guess they didn't know that the man they were in love to was the lover of the artist who made him a superstar. You know? So it's just twisted.
Leyendecker, you could do a whole show on.
You can.
Easily.
It's
right?
one of my passions that you could be talking for hours.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
But tell me more about his homoerotic work.
Yes.
And
So besides the arrow color man, which is homoerotic in just the beauty of the male physique, that's in itself.
Right.
But he also created many ads featuring men in intimate, ambiguous relationship, looking at each other very lovingly,
Longingly.
longingly. That's the word, longingly. Ads that when you look at them today, a century later, they appear very homoerotic to our modern eyes. So, in my research, what I realized that it would be very tempting to reclaim Leyendecker from a modern standpoint as this visionary artist who created these suggestive scenarios from his own wild imagination. But the reality is different. So what Leyendecker was doing is basically he was just depicting the attitudes of his era, which were more relaxed than now. So he was depicting all these how society encouraged men to engage in homosocial relationships in close quarters, such as like gyms, clubs, sports events, etc. And so these environments allow the kind of homoerotic interactions, the kind of some kinds emotional, even physical intimacy that is no longer allowed today. So basically, he was capturing his era.
he was.
But what was subversive about it, there is a subversive side to it, is that he inserted his own lifestyle in the ads by using his partner as a model. And going back to your Calvin Klein point, I find that, or I describe him as revolutionary because he created these ads which are considered or called gay vague.
Gay vague.
Gay vague, but they really paved the way for today's gay specific ads from brands like Calvin Klein, Abercrombie, etc. And to me, what it proves is that the homoerotic imagination has always been a key part of consumer culture.
Wow. The term metrosexual comes to mind with regard to him.
For sure. He probably invented the metrosexuals of his time.
Exactly. And it was kind of implemented in, not so long ago.
Exactly. But he invented it.
Wow. And he did it without any hesitation, or he was never a guy that lacked confidence?
No, because the numbers, the sales support it. Why would anybody, not only that, because of the success, other companies were clamoring for his, Kuppenheimer.
Right.
I mean, he had done before the most homoerotic ads for Ivory soap. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's just unbelievable.
And some of his most famous illustrations are Ivory soap.
And also, which I haven't mentioned, he also changed the American magazine because he completely modernized the cover of the Saturday Evening Post, which was the most important magazine to reach the mass media consumer. And he really reinvented it. And once again, he did it in many cases with homoerotic images using Charles Beach as a model. So again, the most mainstream media with homoerotic images with his life partner.
It's just mind-blowing,
I think.
I have to say. when you enlightened me that
I love it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, that brings us to someone who was not as confident, maybe, as far as I know, and look at his work, but Grant Wood painted the iconic work, American Gothic, sober and stoic as can be, and just one of the most, like the Mona Lisa, one of the most famous works of art in the world. Is it my imagination, or does the homoeroticism in some of his art bring to mind or come across as a repressed homosexuality? And it was sort of evident to me that this was a source of pain for this artist. But Tell me, am I
100%.
on board? Am I?
No, 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 you are 100% right. Again, Grant Wood is one of my big passions. I went to Iowa last year to go to all the locations where he lived, where he worked, and it was unbelievable to see that in person. And I've been working on him for over a decade, and I realized that it's so easy to fall for the fantastical image he created of the the homespun artist
yes.
of rural America, and I have dozens of books on him, and 99% of them stick to this official version of his life, keeping him in the closet. But it all changed when the Whitney did a retrospective a few years ago in which they declared, and I love that line, that Grant Wood's homosexuality is the code that unlocks the truth to his art. So that to me gave me so much, because that's exactly how I feel. And like you said, Grant Wood is known around the world for the American Gothic, which is as iconic, as known as the Mona Lisa. And he was a queer artist in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. At a time when expressing his sexuality openly would have sent him to prison.
Oh, absolutely.
So what did he do? So he embraced a art movement called regionalism that glorified rural America. So this movement allowed him to fabricate a persona. So then all of a sudden he was wearing denim overalls, and meaning, no, this is a man's work.
Yes.
And basically he branded himself the farmer artist of America.
Who works with his hands.
Exactly. The farmer artist of America who was, wholesome.
Yes.
And of course, heterosexual.
I must.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way around
Yes.
it. Poor man. But he did it. And can you tell me what was going on in Grant Wood's life when he painted American Gothic? Because there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on
in that piece.
So when I went to Iowa, I saw the studio, which was literally the size of the studio, or kind of, where he lived and worked with next to his mother and his sister, Nan, who watched him like a hawk. And that's a whole story in itself. And also his studio assistant, Arnold Pyle, which was his constant companion, and he was completely in love with. Yeah. Yes. So in 1930, which is a crucial year in his career, he painted a portrait of his assistant called Arnold Comes of Age, which was a coded portrait showing his devotion for him. And that same year, he painted American Gothic, which, as you mentioned, shows a couple of very stern farmers in front of a house with elongated face matching the windows. And Grant Wood's sister, Nan, who was 30 at the time, posed for her. And Grant Wood's dentist,
Pose for the male, for the farmer.
For the farmer. So the painting, the minute it came out, was a huge sensation. So everybody was asking questions. Are they father and daughter, husband and wife? And if they're husband and wife, how come one is older than the other, And some critics described it, this painting is a bedrock of American values. And another one said, oh my God, damn you are mocking rural America.
You could see anything you
wanted on it. And
Grant
Wood loved the controversy. But to me, what is really important is the fact that because of the fact that he created Arnold Comes of Age, the portrait of his assistant, and Grant Wood, and American Gothic the same year, it's not far-fetched to interpret American Gothic as a depiction of how his sister is wearing their mother's clothes, which is very Freudian, is watching him like a hawk throughout all this. In fact, I can talk about this for an hour, but his sister denied his homosexuality even after decades that he passed. And that's why a lot of historians have to stick to that story.
Because the sister
is
still watching like a hawk,
Mm-hmm.
wherever she is.
Even.
Wow. Wow. So he was really cocooned, or
Yeah.
you could look at it as either protected or
I think it was,
imprisoned.
yeah, I think in a way they gave him protection because, oh, I'm with mother. But it's interesting that the minute the mother passed away, he got married.
Oh, he did?
Yes,
Oh.
but the marriage was a complete disaster that ended in an awful way for him. So, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
That was his life.
yeah,
Wow. He did that one painting would make, I mean, it's out, it just hit it out of the park.
yes, he did
Unbelievably.
from the get-go.
And it's been, as I said, it's been used as satire, as also a reverence
Yeah.
for rural
Yeah.
America.
Yeah,
Anything you want to do
exactly.
with it.
You
And
can
it,
see whatever you want in it.
and it seems to dignify, despite its whatever it's used
Yeah.
to convey.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary
Yeah.
accomplishment.
And actually, the house that is in the painting is still there in Eldon, in Iowa.
Is it?
And I was there, and I took my picture, of course, posing like it. And it tells you how iconic and timeless is that painting.
Oh my gosh. Well, did he actually have covert homoerotic work that he
Oh God!
he actually
Did he? So
Okay.
I mentioned before how the regionalist movement gave him kind of this farmer straight cover, but unfortunately, Grantwood couldn't come out because the leader of the regionalist movement, who was Thomas Benton, was very homophobic. So it's a painful story. So he was unable to express his sexuality openly. So what did he do? So he expressed his, as you say, repressed desires in homoerotic paintings of rural Iowa. So what does he do? So he paints naked farmers, farmers taking a bath, or very phallic silos, or in a very important painting from 1936 called Spring Turning, which, you know, when you look at it, it's like, oh, nice. Bucolic, nice hills, farms. But then when you look at it closely, what he really painted is the very solid contours and a very sensual back of a male. Not only that, he even paints the overalls and even the pockets on the overalls. So when you look at it, you really are flabbergasted. And I am not surprised that at the time, the press described the painting as queer.
So they got it.
I guess.
Anyway, now the guy that I don't know what to do with, frankly,
Okay.
Andy Warhol, is the king of American pop culture, with his signature Campbell soup cans and his Coke bottles, and the strangest one was the Brillo pad boxes.
Yes.
And then repeat them, in a pattern all over the place. What gets me is he became as an iconic a figure as the commercial products that he featured in his art. He became like them in a way. And that led me to, he's completely enigmatic to me. I do not get, what is this about? What is he doing?
So you are exactly where he wants you to be.
Thank you,
You know?
Andy.
So there is a very clear reason for why he's enigmatic, is because Warhol had a very complicated relationship with his sexuality, his homosexuality, which he described as his problem. So he camouflaged his sexual identity all his life. He was never out or in the closet. It all depended on the circumstances. He said, the minute you label something, you can't go back.
Yeah.
So he arrived to New York City in the early 50s to become a commercial illustrator. And remember, this was during the McCarthy era, the very homophobic McCarthy era, and also the time when abstract expressionism really was taking the art world by storm. And artists like Jackson Pollock was creating these big, bold, macho, abstract canvases. But what does Warhol do? So he started developing his identity as an artist, creating very delicate drawings of shoes for ads, drawings of men in drag, and very simple ballpen, over 1,000 simple ballpen drawings of men with brazenly gay content. And what I find revolutionary, particularly for Warhol, who was an ardent Catholic, is that he was showing happy gay men at a time when the whole moral society in America in the 50s was the opposite. And sodomy was a harshly punished felony in every state.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And he was a real strong Catholic, huh?
Ardent Catholic.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a complicated man.
No wonder
Wow.
you find him enigmatic.
So when and why did his art go pop? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, it's interesting because that's why I find that sexuality is so important to understand his persona. So Warhol became probably one of the most important commercial illustrators of the 50s in New York, but he soon realized that his queer drawings would only be embraced by a gay ghetto. The galleries rejected them. And that is the opposite of what he wanted, because he was a ferociously ambitious artist. So around 1959, he stopped creating these queer ads. In fact, he destroyed many of them. And he even changed his image. He went from this sophisticated man into this teeny bopper with a baby doll voice, with a Marilyn Monroe wig, and very ambiguous look. And all this happened when pop culture was exploding, with very bold imagery in advertising, in billboards, in commercials, on TV. So Warhol took advantage of this imagery, but what is fascinating is that his homosexuality went from open to coded.
Isn't that so? He wouldn't do anything conventional. Even, I mean, do you know an artist that's gone from, overt to covert?
That's a very good question. I would have to think about it. But, I can't think of one top of my head.
But if you were to pose that and say, what artist would ever do that? Well, Andy Warhol might well come to mind.
I have the answer for you. It's because, fame was too important to him, and he didn't want to risk it.
Then his core love of, I assume this was all a love of art and expression, and his personal expression.
Exactly.
And he just turned on it all.
Yeah. But going back to your question about coding, so right around 1960 and 61, he created images of Superman and Dick Tracy and Popeye, which are, for us, very straight, powerful archetypes. So you would think, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then the reality is that he revealed in an interview later on that these characters were sexual turn-ons for him as a kid. So again, his homosexuality was encoded. And all the graphic imagery that he did from now on, and you mentioned the soups, etc.
and the Brillo pad boxes.
They avoided any explicit statement about his sexuality because he wanted to keep his fame, So he went from boys kissing boys, which had a limited appeal, to Campbell soup cans, which are universally known and beloved. So there's a very conscious decision behind this. But what is fascinating and moving is that he kept creating coded image until the end of his life. And the perfect example is his partner, John Gould, died from complications of AIDS in '86. And after that, Warhol expressed his grief for his passing in a coded way in his last series, based on of the Last Supper, based on Leonardo's Last Supper. And what he did is Warhol shows Christ at the center, at the eve of his death. And for him, that's a symbol of the suffering of the queer community during the AIDS
During the
era.
AIDS crisis.
And he's asking for a plea for salvation. I found that very moving. That was the very last thing he did, because he died. He went to a show in Italy to show them, and he died soon after he came back.
After. Wow. Wow. I mean, he was so relevant and on the cutting edge of everything,
Yeah.
including his own personal journey.
Yeah.
I mean, to go be open and then to put the genie back in the
Yes,
bottle.
in the bottle.
Because it served his purposes better.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. What do you mean? I know you've mentioned this in your lectures. The don't ask, don't tell policy in regards to queer artists and their recognition in the art world. What does that mean?
Wow. Well, I'm very glad you asked me that. So queer artists, like I mentioned before, have had a revolutionary impact on mainstream culture from the Renaissance, until now. And you only have to look at the list of the most expensive paintings in history to see how many of them were created by queer artists, including the recent sale of Marilyn Monroe's Andy Warhol for nearly $200 million. But the irony is that in spite of this huge impact, the vast majority of the population, if you ask them, as I have, when I was working on a documentary, they cannot name any queer artists. And it's so abominable that that's the case. And you would ask, why is that?
Yeah.
But the reason is because the art world and museums, nearly to this day, they kind of try to hide the importance of an artist's queerness in how it impacted their work. So it is totally okay to talk about Picasso's female muses, but if you try to discuss the sexuality of a queer artist and how important it is to their work, the response, oh no, that's gossip, that's irrelevant,
Yes.
And that is what I call the don't say gay policy, that are making curators hide same-sex relationships of artists and closet artists who should be admired.
Wow.
But the good news is that things are improving, galleries are being much more open, and museums are finally acknowledging the queer heritage in their collections. And in many cases, this is because they have queer curators.
Wow. They're coming around.
Yeah,
And this is the world of art.
it is.
And you go, really? We got this problem in the world of art?
We do.
Just a quick one. Where is it going from here? Do you have any idea?
I think that the same way queer art has evolved throughout history, it's going to keep evolving. I think there's going to be coded work, there's going to be overt work, there's going to be figurative work, there's going to be abstract work. The politicians may try to repress it, and the queer artists are going to react in different ways. Mm-hmm. So it is going to be what it is. It's going to be shape-shifting, but it's always going to be there.
And the message will always be there one way or
another.
That's what I've learned more than anything.
It is.
It's there.
It is.
Well, thank you, Ignacio.
Thank you.
It's been fantastic,
Thank
as
you.
always. And I can't wait to hear more of what you're doing in your
Thank
lectures.
you. My pleasure.
Thank you, and we'll have you back
Thank
when
you.
you've done something else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.